Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube and Chucky2009, and today we're going to be talking about how to run multi-pass fillet welds with 7018. So alright, first off, what is a multi-pass fillet weld, you ask? Well, for comparison, this is a single pass fillet weld. This is done on some 3/8 plate that I just went ahead and plasma cut out. And as you can see, when you do a single pass fillet weld, as you know, you just start off at one end and you drag your electrode along all the way down to the other end, at which point you call it a day, and all is well. Now this is going to have quite a bit of strength to it, especially because we ran it with 7018, but you know, it could always be stronger. And what happens if you need more strength than the single bead can provide? Well, you're going to want to go ahead and put down a much larger weld. Now there's two common ways to do this. Assuming you're stick welding, you can get a larger electrode and put a lot more amps through it, or you can do what's known as a 3-pass fillet weld, or really however many passes you want. Now the most ridiculous multi-pass weld I ever did was 112 passes, but that's a long story. Anyway, we're just going to be starting off doing some 3-pass fillet welds, and as you can see, this is a 3-bead T-joint, as it's called, and that first pass is completely covered up by the two that followed it. We ran one along the bottom and one along the top, and it lays in there kind of nice and flat, despite the fact I ran out of electrode like a ½ inch, you know, before the end of the joint. I hate it when that happens. But anyway, this is a 3-bead T, and this is what I'm going to be showing y'all how to run tonight. Now the cool thing is that once you get the fundamentals of how to run a multi-pass fillet weld, you can carry this out to as many beads as you want. Granted, 112 might be a little bit much, but regardless, you can do this if you so choose to spend your life doing whatever you call this. But like I said, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, right. Once you understand the fundamentals of how to run a multi-pass fillet weld, you can carry this over to pretty much any process you so choose, be it a wire-fed process or even TIG. But getting a little ahead of ourselves, let's get ready to run a 3-bead T-joint. I guess first off, we're going to go fire up our machine, and we'll take it from there. We'll just crank up the old precision TIG, and let's see, we're going to be running 1/8 inch 7018, like I said, and because this is some 3/8 plate, a little bit on the thicker side, so I'll start off at about 120 amps. Before we start burning rods, let's just take a minute to discuss how exactly we're going to put in this first pass. Now with this 1/8 inch 7018, we're going to be at about a 45-degree work angle, which is this angle right here. If you're too much up like this, we'll just deposit the bead on the bottom plate. We'll probably have some undercut and underfill along the top. And likewise with this would just kind of be a mess. So we're going to aim for the middle and go at about a 45-degree work angle. Now our travel angle or drag angle is going to be about ye much, I'd say. You don't want to go down there too far, but at the same time, if you're running a push angle or not enough drag angle, you can run the risk of trapping some slag. And these Hobart 7018s, they're a little bit on the slaggy side, and because I really want to work to push that to the back of the puddle, I run a little bit more drag angle than I do with other electrodes sometimes. So let's do it. And to eat up our smoke, we have this nice Avani SPC 2000. Pause to fill the cylinder. Break the arc. So there's our first pass, YouTube, and I guess this means that now it's time to move on to pass number 2. So for the second pass, what we're going to try to do is overlap the first pass by about 1/2 to 2/3. I'm just going to run my electrode down along like such, and while I'm welding, the trick is, like I said, you're going to want to cover this up by about 1/2 to 2/3, and I really don't want to see much more than the width of the bare electrode exposed on that first bead. We want to cover up pretty much the rest of this. And the reason for that is because if you don't use enough overlap, you'll have a nice notch like that between the first and the second beads. Maybe not that extreme, but you know, I'm exaggerating it here somewhat. But either way, it'll be bad. And then, because the first and the second bead will be spaced out so much, when it comes time to put that third pass in there, you're going to be all over the place trying to deposit this massive amount of weld to cover up that gully. And to avoid that, we're going to use about 1/2 to 2/3 overlap on that first bead. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that our work angle has changed slightly. Now, with the first pass, as you know, we are aimed in at the center of the joint, trying to evenly deposit that first bead on the top plate and the bottom plate. Now, with the second pass, we don't want to get anything on the top plate. We want to get it all on the bottom plate and on this bead. So instead of going in there, at a 45-degree angle, I'm going to raise this up and use considerably less than that. But our drag angle is going to remain about the same. And now that we're done with that first pass, you know, our workpiece is nice and warmed up, so I'm just going to go ahead and back this down a few amps. Now this is optional. If you don't want to turn your welder down, you can just run a little bit faster or maybe use a shorter arc length, but I'll leave that up to you. Let's do it. And such is our second pass. Now, as you can see at this point in time, it's not a very good looking weld. It's mostly on the bottom plate. It looks kind of like a big old mess, but don't worry, we can fix that. Now, as you know, with the second pass, we favored the bottom plate a little bit to deposit the weld metal on the bottom, but now we have to put weld where there is no weld, and to do that, we are going to favor the top plate and come in here at much less work angle. Our drag angle is going to remain pretty much unchanged, but as opposed to being up here, we're now going to be more like down around in this neighborhood, and this is going to deposit the weld on the top plate and the top of our weld. And so hopefully when this is done, this will even things out. It'll be nice and smooth and good looking. So let's do it. Well, check it out, YouTube. This is our finished product, and considering that I'm an incompetent hack who's making videos with scrap metal in the middle of a barn and a cornfield, yeah, I'm not complaining. Now, as you can see, we don't have any undercut or anything of that nature up along this top toe line, and you'll have problems with undercut and underfill if you run too hot, if you overheat your joint, or if you don't use the right work angle. Like if we come in like this, we'll be putting metal here, and the heat of the arc and the puddle is going to be sucking metal out from this top plate and not putting any back in, because obviously with the angle we're depositing that downwards, and you know, that leaves you with a nice unfilled ridge, which you really want to avoid. But if you use the right work angle, you'll be cutting metal out of the top plate, and because of the way the electrode's aimed, you'll be putting it right back in where it came out of, and that's what you want. Now, a couple other things you'll notice, that there's not like a it's not like a huge notch right here or anything along those lines. Just running the tip of this electrode over these two beads, you can see and feel where the beads meet, and that's fine. That's not a big deal. But you know, if there's like a huge notch here, or a ridge that's really bad. What that means is your second pass is too far out this way, and yeah, that's just not good. So there's that, and if we look at it from the side view, you can see that there's as much distance this way as there is this way, which means we didn't majorly favor the top plate or the bottom plate, and we have a nice even weld. But you might be asking yourself, what do I do if I want to weld with a little bit more penetration than 7018 can provide? Well, one thing you could do is switch it up a little bit and put in your first pass, otherwise known as your root, with some 6010 or 6011. This is 1/8 inch Lincoln 5P 6010. This is what we're going to be using, and then we're going to run 7018 from then on out. So let's see what that looks like. Now 5P 6010 definitely does run a little bit hot, so I'm going to start out around 90 amps or so. Oh, too far. And we'll go from there. Yeah, that stuff digs pretty deep, YouTube. Alright, well, let's get to work covering it up with some 7018. Same rules apply, YouTube. 1/2 to 2/3 overlap, and we're just going to go for it and hope for the best. Pretty much the same work and drag travel angles as when we did this with 100% 7018. So there you go, YouTube. Our top bead, our third pass blends nicely in with the second pass there. Everything's real nice and smooth. It's a flat weld, and if you look at it from the side view, you can see that there's as much weld on that top plate as there is on the bottom plate. And that's about all there is to it, YouTube. Now, as you may have noticed when I was putting in that third pass, you know, I had this image in my head of where exactly I wanted that bead to lay in there, and then you imagine a halfway point, and you'd think you'd run the electrode down that halfway point, and instead of doing that, I was just above it, just a tiny little bit, not even like 1/8 of an inch or anything, you know, less than that, because I'm counting on gravity to work its magic and pull that bead down. So I was favoring the top plate just a little bit to counteract that. Again, not a huge difference. I wasn't like way up there or anything, just a little bit above that imaginary center line, and that's something that works for me. So that's pretty much all there is to it, YouTube. Now that's 3 passes. If you're gonna do 6 or 15 or 27 or however many. All there is to it is you maintain that overlap. Grab my pointer here. You can see we've got the 2 beads. I'd put 3 beads in on top of this layer, then 4 on top of that one, 5 on top of the next one, 6 on top of the one after that, and so on and so forth. Again, just maintaining that 2/3 overlap, and you can go to town and put down as big of a weld as you can ever possibly want to put down. So, you know, I hope this video helps you. It's been a lot of fun to make. And as always, YouTube, thanks for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more. And have a nice night, everybody. Yeehaw.